The Icons of Real Estate podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate podcast. This is Luis, your host, and today we have a very special guest, Karey, who's one of the top realtors in Kansas, in Topeka, and she has done 2,000 transactions. Can you imagine the amount of experience she has? So she's going to let us know about her story and how she has achieved so many transactions. So hello, Karey, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Can you let us know about your story? How did you start into the real estate business?
I started in real estate just based off of a conversation. We had a transaction actually when we purchased our own home. And my husband said, you should really consider doing this. He was like, I know you would do a better job than what we went through. And, whenever you haven't sold real estate, you don't know what is a good job and what's a bad job. And I would say in her defense, our home wasn't on the market. It was back when the VA didn't put homes on the market. So she did find the house and had went out and she did her job. We got the house and there were a lot of people bidding against us. So I don't know if it was a fair statement, but that's how it all got started. And I had just had a child and was pregnant again and studied and took the test and had a 6-year-old as well and started selling real estate when my babies were little. So I started out part-time, headed off really well. And I mean, I did all right. I didn't do a massive amount, but considering the national average, I did a lot more than the national average. And then a few years in, I would say probably 2 years into my business, a friend of mine from Wichita said, I want you to go to a conference with me. And it was an REO conference, and I didn't know what exactly that meant. But I was also tech savvy compared to what agents are and got into doing that. And obviously that increased how much I did, but it wasn't all I did. I started slow. I told him, listen, I have babies at home. I am not looking to do this like a massive amount. And I got up to around 80 transactions a year, pretty much by myself, 2 part-time assistants with 3 small kids. And then decided I started to need to add a team, started adding buyer's agents, and did that for a long time. I mean, we were selling over 200 homes a year. And basically that just kept moving on. And then I stopped selling real estate altogether. And everybody thought, oh, well, she's just going to fizzle out because she's not doing REO. I haven't done REO in years. And it didn't fizzle out. I ended up buying a Realty Executives franchise and I had a team of 21 people. I did all of that. And I would say I would never do it again. I was debt free whenever I bought that franchise and I did not walk away debt free and had a really large team, a lot of personalities. You learn what you're worth to people and it was what I could give them. And so that was the hard lessons. I learned a lot. Owning Realty Executives and being a broker owner changed how I saw people. And that would be the thing that I would want to undo. But still did really well. And whenever we changed to EXP, only a couple came with me. And April Comstock is still with me today. We're down to just the 2 of us. Part of the reason why they wanted to interview me was the fact that I said, listen, I took a couple of years off and I still capped. And, still came back and I'm busy just as if I didn't take off. And so it was really just one of those things where my health just had got so bad from so much stress for so long that my hair fell out. I went from having straight hair to curly hair and just health wise, it just kicked me in the teeth. And it was, I'm an overachiever. I'm harder on me than anybody's ever going to be. And just kept going and going and going. And doing and doing. And I was constantly adding things to my plate. I was endorsed by Barbara Corcoran, Gary Laveau, had a radio talk show, switched it to a podcast. And then all of a sudden my world just stopped because I couldn't get out of bed. And so he was like, okay, talk about that. How do you go from that? And then all of a sudden you're just back. And I was like, well, it wasn't all of a sudden. It was
Yeah.
rough, 2 years of not knowing what happened to me and what was happening to me and if I was still going to be here. So it changes how you see things a lot to learn about what's important and whether or not, it was worth it. What I
Yeah.
will,
Actually,
yeah.
I have a question, Han. So, what is the difference from your way to see things now from at that time in the past? Because you were already successful and you will be successful again very soon. We know it. But what is that difference?
I would say success is being happy and doing what you're doing. I mean, I make more now than I made owning Realty Executives each year. So there's a big difference. You could say, okay, well, success is, how do you view success? Well, if you own a franchise and you have a massive team and you have a talk show and all that stuff, you're endorsed by celebrities, you would view that as success. But what was I taking home? I was taking home a mountain of stress. I was taking home far less money than I'd ever made in my career. To me, that's not success. That's pomp and circumstance. You know, Everybody knew who I was. What did it matter? I was killing myself. And so now I don't worry about money. I'm making money. I'm not stressed at all. I still close more in a month than most will do in their career.
Yeah.
And my hair came back, it's just like,
Wow.
so success is really, I think, what's your mindset? Everybody was like, well, I can't believe you would give up Realty Executives. I can't believe you're going to stop the talk show. What do you mean you're not going to work with Barbara? And it wasn't that I didn't want to. It was that it just didn't align with what I wanted to do. And I didn't know why. I didn't know that I was headed for a crash. I just knew that something wasn't right. And I didn't feel right. It was hard to get moving. And it was just like my body was turning on me and I couldn't figure out why. And I would say success is relative. How much do you need to make? I just had a girl on Facebook and she went through a really tragic thing during a transaction and she's not with my company. She's not a part of my team. She's with a totally different company. And she thanked me on Facebook for making that transaction so easy. And I told her whenever she told me what was wrong with her, what had happened. And she said, I'll call you tomorrow after my surgery. And I said, no, you won't. I said, don't you dare call me. I said, you need to go home and you need to rest and you need to take care of you. This can wait. And she was like, yeah, but we have this deadline. And I'm like, we're still going to be fine. Go home. I don't want to hear from you till Monday. And if you don't feel good on Monday, I better not hear from you till Tuesday. And she was like, okay. And she was like, I wish everybody handled a transaction that way. And I said, well, there was a point in time I probably would have said, okay, who's covering for you? And I said, really, I look at it as in, are you okay?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be about killing yourself 24/7. I mean, I've had clients that I was telling my husband about it last night because she had shared it on Facebook yesterday. And I said, I negotiated on morphine after having a hysterectomy because my client insisted I did. I told him I was on morphine. I just had a complete hysterectomy. And he didn't care. And so there are clients that don't care. There are agents that don't care. And it's crazy. I mean, I understand what we do is timeline based, but if there's a way to fudge that to make it happen and it still be all right without killing yourself, we should give each other more grace. And it doesn't have to be all pomp and circumstances. If you're making what makes you happy and you love what you do that. Everybody said, why do you hate owning Realty Executives? I said, it took everything that I loved about this job and I had to give it to somebody else.
Wow.
And I got to be the heavy and take care of all the big issues and make sure all the bills are paid. And I generated all the leads. So 98.5% of the business came from me and my work. And I can't take all the credit. April Comstock helped significantly. But the two of us, we were generating all this business for 21 people and nobody cared. And they're not still here. So I guess really he said, how did you do it? And how did you come back? It's about looking at what made you happy and what's important. Everybody's like, oh, well, too bigger. And the funny thing is that the agent had said to me, I thought about building a team. I really looked up to you. And I said, okay, first off, let's have real conversations about teams.
Yeah.
It's
Actually,
not-
I do remember a podcast I had a couple of weeks ago. This guy, I'm not gonna say his name or anything, but this guy said he's a workaholic, a realtor, and he was doing 100 sales in his lifetime, like in 10 years. And he said he doesn't take weekends, he doesn't rest, he doesn't do anything. And you've been doing 20 times more than him.
Yeah.
And you're resting, you're taking your time, you're taking your personal life seriously. So yeah,
Yeah.
the American culture is telling us that we should be working the whole day and never take care of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. If you saw what I did in a day, I get my job done and I'm very focused for a few hours. And then it's like, okay, what else can I get into? I don't work as much. I don't have the radio show anymore. I kind of miss it now that during that time frame, like I was worried about whether or not I'd be on the show and not be able to finish a sentence. Like it was stressing me out that much. And, I was always getting into other things. And somebody had asked me on a show and said, what all are you into? And I had multiple things going, like more than just real estate. And somebody said, what are you running from? And I said, what do you mean? What am I running from? She said, you're running from something. Nobody works that hard. And I was like, I don't know. Apparently, my body was just like, okay, you can't keep this up. And it literally, there was a period of time, it was all I could do. And I had to have help from getting from my bed to the bathroom.
Okay.
So I think really, if you ask me, okay, what's the point to take away from this show is stop killing yourself, figure out what you need to make and work towards that. Like it doesn't, at the end of the day, yeah, I owned a franchise. I had a radio show. I was endorsed by celebrities. I had a massive team. Where's that now? Where are those people now? Where were they when I was sick? Did they call? Would they have shown up at my funeral? It really boils down to what matters. And none of that matters. Why would I give up everything for people that don't care, that just worried about how much they were going to make off of what I was doing? And it wasn't worth it. And now I work, you can say very part-time, and I make nice 6-figure income and I'm not stressed out. And I won't work with you if you stress me out. I will ask April if she wants to work with you. And if she says no, then we send you to someone else. And life should not be about what you're killing yourself for. I'm taking off for a few weeks to go to Portugal. In 2022, I was gone for 6 weeks. I went to Italy. I just said, you know what? I'm done. I've got to get out of here. And this is before I got really, really sick. I just knew that I had hit a massive burnout. And I left everyone and everything, and I went to Italy. And I was gone for 6 weeks, and I did not work. And my body was like, listen, something's going to happen if you don't shut down. And so I did. And I just decided the only way I could do that is to leave the country. And so I did, figure out what matters. If I could do things over, spend more time with my kids. They're now grown. I'm going to be a grandma. It's about putting priorities and figuring out, okay, well, what do I need to make? And is the pomp and circumstances worth it? Everybody's like, be bigger, do more. And I went there, I did that, and it almost killed me.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah,
I guess
it happens. And probably, it is such a story. Actually, I would say most of my generation will pass for that situation as we are running all the time to everywhere and we don't take time for ourselves. So, what advice would you give to your audience? There are some realtors that are killing themselves to do some transactions because they don't know how to do 2,000 transactions. They're trying to do maybe the first 10 transactions and they're trying to do everything they can But what advice would you give to them so they have this balance while being successful?
Systems. It's about consistency. Anybody can generate business. You just have to have a plan. And I was telling Thomas whenever I talked to him, I'm actually working on a planner that will tell you what to do every week for 52 weeks to generate business. And it'll give you like exactly what to do, along with a spreadsheet that'll walk through exactly how to get through a transaction. And if you fill it all out, your taxes are done at the end of the year. So I'm taking the systems that we use to get the transactions done that we did and putting them in a format that's helpful. But at the end of the day, really, it's about consistency. I mean, there are easy ways to generate business. Look for, let's just go low hanging fruit, an investment property that's on the market and it's not your listing. Well, go out and look for the investors that are in that neighborhood or that invest in that neighborhood. Do some research. Send them a mailer and say, hey, this property is on the market. I just wanted you to know. I'd be happy to show it to you. I did that one year and we had several of them that were investment properties. I think we had 3 in one specific area that was pretty weighted in investors. We pulled anybody that had more than one property and we researched them. We figured out where they lived. We figured out what their phone numbers were and we just started calling. Hey, did you know these were on the market? And sold them all within a week. Well, we kept that database and we then started saying, okay, as we were talking to them, what's your email? That way, you know, the next time something comes up, it didn't matter if it's our listing or not. So we started like building relationships that way. I mean, that's a low hanging fruit. Everybody knows where investment properties are.
Yeah.
And so really it's just about being consistent, but also coming into the business. If you're brand new, you should really have a second job until you're not, until you've established yourself. So take some of the money that you make at your other job and invest it in marketing yourself. Stop buying leads. Half the time they're not worth anything. You know, you've got to have somebody that's really good on the phone to understand how to convert, track everything. Anybody that's ever called you, you need to come in a database and you need to communicate with them and offer things of value. There's so many real estate agents and so many people know 10. You've got to tell them why you're different, why they should even use you. You know, our drip campaign was set up to where if you were a buyer, it walked you through every portion of a transaction before a year was up. And so you knew what earnest money was, you knew what it meant, how you could lose it, how you keep it, what it was used for, about inspections, how to negotiate, all of those things. We walked you through that. So they didn't get rid of our emails. We had people that kept emails for a year and then called it. If you didn't have good credit, you know, you'll run across those people, send them to the people that will help them get their credit and keep up with it. You know, we would just set them up on a drip campaign and say, hey, we know you're working on things. Have you thought about this? You know, there are different ways of paying off debts that if you do them wrong, you lower your credit score. So if the lender knows it's out there, the lender may say, listen, don't do anything. We're going to settle that up at closing, but you need to have the money.
Yeah.
And they'll rescore them. There's all these different ways of doing it. There's teaching classes. Whenever I bought Realty Executives, I went to our local attorney, Vern Jarbo, and said, hey, I don't like the fact that we can't hand out a copy of a contract. So first time you're seeing a contract is when you're writing one. And it's hard because you could explain everything in perfect detail and they're not going to retain it. And that's where lawsuits come from. And I said, help me bulletproof myself because I can't afford the lawsuit. I'm paying all the franchise fees. And so we went through and we created a form that said, okay, here are scenarios. These are the things that you're going to be asked for. And these are the things that you're going to be able to negotiate. And here's a summary of what that means to you. And we went through it in a presentation and they got to take that home. So they were more prepared to buy a house than a lot of new real estate agents are to explain it. And they were buyers and they knew it. And they're the repeat customers because they knew that we didn't leave them hanging. We didn't just not explain. When it came to sellers, we have spreadsheets. They can't say they don't know what they're walking away with because they know down to about $20. And the only reason why it's that is because sometimes they forget to tell us about a second payoff.
Yeah.
So, you know, that $20 is typically on their fault, not ours. We get it right down to the penny, including taxes. Our spreadsheets calculate the taxes at the date of closing. So it's really about knowing your systems, having a plan, putting together, an email system that's more than just, hey, I'm a real estate agent. They don't care. They want to know what your value is, and you need to be able to show them what that is.
All right. So, what is the next step for you? I mean, what are your plans for the future or into your career and also personally?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I've just gone back to work. I capped this month for EXP. I'm still, I don't know. I don't know how much longer I want to sell real estate. I think I'm going to do more towards systems and like teaching people how to do what we did so that they can go out and do it without all the stress. I mean, I can't imagine not having a system and doing a real estate transaction. That has got to be the most stressful way to do real estate. But I'm sure I'll stay in for a while longer, but I have no intentions of selling 200 homes a year. I mean, I'll be all right with about 80, and that's still more than what most people will do in a career.
So, looking for a comfortable number, no, to bring money and bring stability at the same time, right?
Yeah, I just make the money that I want to make, be able to take a month off and go somewhere where I want to go, travel, school grandkids, and just not be so stressed out. But even still, I mean, my idea of being lazy is a lot of people's full-time job. So I just work at a different pace. But at the same time, it's just, I think everybody should look at it and say, okay, if I took the pomp and circumstances away and said, I need to make this much, how much would that be? And what would the price of the house be? What is your average sales price? Okay, well, how many of those do you need? And what are the fees that are associated so that you add in everything and then you calculate out what that would be? I think you'd be shocked at how many you actually, and then anything over that is spending money. If you put together a budget and you put together a goal and you decide, okay, well, what does that take to get to that goal? It's oftentimes not as much as you. Like I did that with the agents that worked for me, and they typically fell about 25 transactions a year.
Okay.
And that was all they needed to do. And that's not that much. So anybody, I think, honestly, if you know what you're doing and you're getting good direction, that's not hard to do. So it's really about breaking it down and saying, okay, where are the sources that I need to be looking at? I need to be meeting with attorneys about probate. Do I need to start working with investors? Investors are always moving. I don't care what market you're in. They're moving something into real estate or learn about equity exchanging. Say they have 4 rentals, but they want to go into apartment buildings. Okay, well, are those rentals paid off? Can we move that money and swap it out? There are ways to trade even inside of an exchange. So it's really about going out and studying, okay, what's out there, what's available.
So, yeah, go ahead.
New construction, even if you're not the listing agent, offer to host open houses or do mailers. I had one that I put on the market in the 800 range, which in our market is big. And I had agents from all over from different companies saying, hey, can I market your list? You can do that. I mean, all you need to do is ask. So you don't have to be the one that's out there listing it. You just need to be the one that's out there marketing it.
And what advice would you give to the frustration part? So there are many realtors that are not being very lucky. I don't believe in luck, but let's call it like that. People who are not achieving even 12 transactions per year, or they are not achieving their goals. How can they handle the frustration without damaging their body?
You need to look at what they need to be. Where's the weak part? Is it because you're not getting up and doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you not marketing? Are you not asking to market other people's stuff? What is your strategy? If you have no plan, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Like even for me, I would keep a spreadsheet 6 months out. So I knew that in that 6 months time, I knew that the bills were going to be paid. I knew how much I had to generate in order to get that 6 months taken care of. And if I had over, then I would say, okay, well, how much over am I? And so I would know how much, if I had breathing room. And then I looked for different sources. If the source that I had, it's kind of fizzled out, I would look for a different source. There are a lot of really good books. As a matter of fact, I tell everybody I learned how to sell real estate at a high level. It's from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, long before Keller Williams ever came here. And a friend of mine had given it to me. She was out of Wichita. I did not learn from my local competitors how to sell real estate. My brokers told me how not to get sued, and they walked me through the contract. But what I learned from a book. And there are a lot of good ones out there, but that one still stands by. I worked for Keller Williams and was a coach for them. It's a good book. Like I said, it was here. I learned from that a good 10 years before Keller Williams ever hit peak canvas. And I did exactly what it said. So have a strategy. Frustration wise, if you're not making money in real estate, you need to be getting out in front of somebody, but you also need to be making money. So you need a part-time job. There are a lot of jobs that you can do where you get in front of people, go to ROTC type meetings, go to business meetings. There are a lot of things you can be doing that will generate business. It's just, what is your plan? If you don't have a plan, you are going to be frustrated all day long. You have to, it just is, you have to have a plan. And unfortunately, in sales, we're typically more people than we are plan people.
Yeah.
I just happen to be wired the other way. I got into it because I just knew that I could handle a transaction. And my husband said, I think you'd be good at this. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, I did all right, but it just, you have to look at it and dissect it and say, okay, what's my strategy? And then you have to get up and do it. I couldn't have generated that much business for people. Number one, if I hadn't had April, on the days that I was like, I can't make another phone call, she could. And at the same time, it was, what do we need to do? What are the numbers? How do we hit the numbers? What are the price points? So we would say, okay, well, we can do this many in this price point, and this many in this price point, and this many in this price point. And we would literally dissect it. We would say, okay, well, has a home expired? Which you don't have a lot of expired right now at the time you did. We'd go out and say, okay, what expired in the last year that didn't sell? But they still want to sell. And we would just ask, do you still want to sell? We think we can get it done for you. So it's really about looking at all the different sources and then making a plan based on those sources.
Awesome. This is so beautiful. I've been learning so much from you. Actually, this is one of the best podcasts ever. So
I bet you tell that to everybody, though, right?
No, you can listen to all of my podcasts, and I don't say that ever. So, so actually, you're so wise at this moment, and at the same time, you're so successful. 2,000 sales, it's not normal. You are the top 1% in the US. So,
I've been at it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it didn't happen overnight. And there was a lot of it that, it wasn't always easy. But we survived. It's looking at the trends. Whenever I got into REO, that was the trend. Did I get into it on an accident? Absolutely. 110%. That was a fluke. I walked into a meeting and they liked me because I can crack a joke. And I was tech savvy. And, it wasn't planned, but it worked. And then I always said if somebody got hurt, I wouldn't do it anymore. And it was my son that got hurt. He ended up inhaling mold from a foreclosure. And I turned in my notice to everybody right then and there because he got really, really sick. And I never did another foreclosure. But, everybody in this industry, they're all like, well, you're going to fail because you're not doing that anymore. That just drove me to say, okay, you're wrong. And just continued on. And we never hit a downside. We just kept going.
Exactly.
So a competitiveness of your agents, everybody out there, they're all competitive. They all want to beat the other person to the dollar, basically. Don't get involved in it. One of the wisest things any broker ever told me was if they're standing around the water cooler, this is back in the day, they're not your people because that's they're not making money standing there. So I was always, okay, well, what do I need to do to get this done? And I didn't stand around the water cooler, and I didn't want to stand around and gossip about who was doing what. You know, I would rather figure out, okay, what's the next strategy? What am I going to do? And how am I going to pull it off? And how am I going to pay for it? And I always led with, how can I teach them? How can I make sure that I show them value, and that whenever they buy a house, they understand how important inspections are, or value if they overpay, how long are they going to have to live there before they can leave? You know, all of those things to me were more important. And so that's what we led with. And it paid us really well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Such a nice way to see life now. Well, the audience will also be very happy to listen to you and they will learn a lot. I know there are many agents of my age. I'm 28, so we still have a lot to learn, and it's so nice to learn from you.
Well, I'm hoping by the end of the year, we'll have the planner that walks you through how to generate business and everything done. And that is
Okay.
the goal. Spreadsheets are almost completely done, and those will go out. So if you follow me on Facebook, just look for Karey Brown. I have the little blue check that says that's who I am. And I'll post that there, and we'll start sharing it out. But we're starting mainly in Kansas, and then we'll start going out of
Awesome.
this particular area.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll follow you, and I also recommend the audience to follow you on Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere so they can follow your next project.
That sounds great. And if I get around to it and decide to go back to it, it's Real Estate 101 with Karey Brown. There are a lot of, on our YouTube channel, all the shows that I had. I interviewed somebody each week, and we literally take real estate and dissect it. And even the local attorney said, you know, if you want to learn about real estate, just watch the show, because I had every industry expert that I could find on the show and asked them to explain everything. So
Awesome.
it was really helpful for agents as well as buyers and sellers.
That's awesome, Gary. Well, it was such a pleasure to have you here at Icons of Real Estate, and looking forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.